Okay, so let's take some time to look at the transparency panel. So this is a panel that allows you to adjust the transparency or opacity of an object or a group of objects. It also allows you to change how Illustrator interprets the color and values of that object through blending modes. So let's go ahead and open up the transparency panel. You go right over here to the panel dock. You're going to find two circles overlapping each other. You can click on that, or you can go to Window and Transparency, and I'll go ahead and pull this off of the dock. And we're going to go through just these really common blending modes and capabilities with the transparency panel. I'm going to go ahead and click on this first darkest circle, and in the transparency panel, we can come over here and we can either input a certain amount of opacity, so 50, or we could adjust it with this slider. So let's click the next one, and instead of just adjusting the opacity, I'm going to come right over next to opacity, and as I hover over it, it tells me I'm changing the blending mode. I'm going to go from normal down here to saturation, and what this actually does is it pulls the values of other colors and saturates it into the object that we've selected. Let's choose the next one, difference. I'll choose difference, and what this one does is it actually changes to the complementary color of the object directly below it. So in this case, the object directly below this shape is this one, and then I'll click on this next one, overlay, and this is a really common blend mode. So what this one does is it reads the values next to it, and if the value is lower than the value of the object, it'll actually bump up that value. But if the value is below the value of the object, it'll drop it. It takes values and it shifts them in the opposite direction. All right, I'll choose this next one, screen, and screen is going to bump up all the values. It's going to make them lighter, so you can see wherever it's overlapping, it's bringing up the values. And then the last one, multiply, a very commonly used blend mode. This is going to drop all the values. So multiply and screen are kind of like the antithesis of each other. Multiply drops values, screen raises values. Overlay does essentially what both of them do. And so that's just a general overview of working with the blend modes. Now let's see how we could use those in a more practical manner. So I think one of the best ways to use these blend modes is with textures and gradients. So we're going to go ahead and practice using a combination of clipping masks and also using the transparency panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to put texture over this cube. And I've gone ahead and placed a texture photo right here. For a few tips on photo textures that you bring into Illustrator, try to make sure that they're pretty high resolution, because you don't want to see a bunch of pixels in your texture. Try to get an interesting and random pattern, and try to have some good contrast, having very light parts and then having very dark parts. That contrast works well for giving a sense of texture feeling over a surface. A light source is good to have. So in this one, it's very subtle, but you can see that this part of the surface is the light part. So the light is coming from this way and moving down. So let's do this top surface first. I want to put this texture on top of this surface and then apply a blending mode to it. I'm going to use the draw inside method for placing this texture on top of here. So I'll select that and I'll do Command and C to copy that. I'll click outside and then I'm going to select this top plane of the cube, and then I'll come over here and click Draw Inside. Gives me the dotted frame. Now I'll hit Command and V, paste that on top. For this cube, I want the color to show through. So I don't want this texture color to dominate the color of the cube. That's why I want to use the blending modes. So let's come over to the blending mode and let's experiment. Let's just go through and see what each one of these, the effect it's going to have on the surface. So this one's darken, multiply, color burn, lighten, screen, dodge, overlay, soft light, hard light, difference, exclusion, hue, saturation, color, which is hard to see because it's such a gray value, and then luminosity. For this one, I think I'm going to use the soft light. The soft light is very similar to the overlay. All right, and so when I'm done, I will come back and click Draw Normal, and let's try that again. Let's try this dark side of the cube. We've already copied this onto the clipboard, so all we have to do is click Draw Inside and then Command V to paste that, and this time I'll try another blend mode. I'll try try multiply. It's a very common blend mode. And I'll actually bring down the opacity just a little bit so it's not so strong. And I might even scale that just a little bit. And I'm looking here at this edge. I'm just looking to see if I can get just a subtle match with that edge. Okay. I like that, and I'll click on Draw Normal, and then I'll do this last side. Click Draw on Side, Command V, and let's try to find a blend mode. And for this one, let's try Overlay, and then let's bring down the opacity, bring it down to about 70%. All right, and I'll click OK. And there we turned a very slick and somewhat boring cube into an interesting cube with some texture value. So that's just a general overview of using the transparency panel. So look for opportunities to use the transparency panel for your gradients, your textures, and your other blocks of colors.